fitness, physical, mental, spiritual. Zealous Wellness with Mike Hollis.
Hey there, and welcome to another episode of Zealous Wellness with Mike Hollis. I'm your host. What an amazing game yesterday. Not so much for the Patriot fans, but I had my annual house party, but kind of like a block party. We have like 4 houses around here that we all kind of have gatherings, and everyone kind of just goes from house to house and, hanging out and stuff. But, I didn't really get to watch the game a whole lot. That's very typical because I'm, entertaining and so forth. But I did watch the recap today and watch a lot of the highlights. But man, that was a very solid defensive performance by the Seattle Seahawks. I almost said my Seattle Seahawks, because that was the only team I had left to root for, because I guess my Washington State connection, of course. But I had my nephews over here. They live in Jacksonville. One's in St. Augustine, one's here in Jacksonville, but they're all the way from the Northwest in Spokane as well, in Washington State as well. So they were over here, and it was a good day for the Seattle Seahawks and all the fans, of course. But man, the game itself is a huge game, and part of the things that I'm going to talk about today have a little bit to do with what we talked about last week about what are these guys, how are they preparing for this game? What's going through their mind? Are they going to overdo it? Are they going to over prepare? Are they going to outguess themselves? Are they going to second guess themselves? Are they going to do too much work or not enough? It really, in some of the interviews, some of the players prior to the game starting, I think one guy was interviewed on game day. He said, "Oh, just hanging out." It's like, "Oh, any special breakfast today?" And no, just normal. Like I normally do. "Oh, any different, pregame warm up?" He said, "No, just gonna go out there and do what we normally do." I'm like, "That is awesome. Okay, good." Because so many times that people just overdo it. They get too caught up again. And I bring up my kicking stuff, obviously in the NFL. But when you treat a game winning kick as too important. Trying really carefully not to miss, or just, doing whatever you can to make the kick. And in all reality, it's no different than any kick in the game. It's just that, the score now really matters. That's why there's so much pressure, but that's what people get themselves in trouble with is they try too hard. And that's what I'm saying with, a preparation for the Super Bowl. You're trying, if you try too hard to do some things differently, why would you mess with your routine? That's the same with kicking. Like, I don't want to mess with my routine. My job is still the same. I do the same things I've always done day in and day out of practice. And I'm just going to continue doing that. Doesn't really matter what game we're playing. Yes, it is the highest sporting event in the world, watched by the most people in the world at one given time. And so there's a lot of eyeballs on you, but that shouldn't change your mentality. And so another thing I want to really focus on, that was kind of the premise of last week's episode. But, today I want to talk about not, doing things over and above, but understanding and evaluating what it is that you have full control over. That's really the idea is when you have control over things, you are directly responsible for your actions. But with regards to things you don't have control over and you're trying to control, that's where I'm going with this, is where you get into trouble. Jason Myers had an amazing game. He was the first, he broke a record. It was, he had 5 field goals, most field goals in any Super Bowl. He was 5 for 5 on field goals, and a couple extra points, but that was a record. The record before was 4. So he broke a record. And, as a kicker, I'm always looking at kicks and I'm not judging them. I'm just looking at them like, and I know Jason. I've worked with Jason before. He is Michael Husted's guy. Michael played in the NFL the same time I did, but Jason came in through Michael Husted's National Camp Series. It's basically like a showcase event for high school kids going to, high school kids going to college, but also pro guys, guys that are out of college looking to, take it up for another level. And I think I was there at the event in Mobile, Alabama, where Jason Myers was discovered by the Jaguars, of course, during one of our pro days, with regards to our charting and so forth. We had a bunch of NFL scouts and coaches there watching these kickers and snappers and punters perform, of course. But with regard to that, it's just with having the idea of what it is and just only focusing on what you can control, and it's in everyday life, and that's where I really want to focus on today. tonight, this evening, is the fact that that even your workouts, your diet, you are in control of a lot of things, but there's a lot of things that you can't control. But it's a mindset, and again, I do a lot of talking about mindset because that's really a huge deal with regards to my playing in the NFL, and how I got the journey of even getting there was a mindset thing. So everything is a mindset, and how you can you control things that you can control, and you can't worry about the things that you cannot control. So with that said, let's hear real quick from our sponsor, and when we get back, we'll get into the nuts and bolts of how to recognize what things you can and can't control and what to do about them. So here's a word from our sponsor. We'll be right back.
At 3, we want to give you the true health benefits that you're paying for, something you can feel and see a difference quickly. Each product is packed with powerful plant-based nutrients that are combined through a proprietary curation process and then infused with innovative cellular absorption technologies to ensure the nutrients absorb into the cells for maximum wellness. The quality and effectiveness of our life-changing products is evident by their approval to be included in the well-known Prescriber's Digital Reference, or PDR. The PDR has been a valuable resource to the medical doctors and providers in the healthcare community for decades. Our products are GMO-free, clinically studied, and third-party tested, all designed to support health and proactive wellness for everyone.
And welcome back. Yeah, so with regards to the things that we can and can't control, you definitely want to focus your energy on things that you can control. When you're talking about your diet, you control what you put in your mouth. Your body is your temple. We've always talked about that. The best thing and the best situation in life is to take care of that temple. And if you put a bunch of junk in your body, you're not taking care of your temple. And but again, that's your control. However, there are some limitations because of the foods and stuff that we're have access to, which is not great. I always talk about the whole grocery store thing. I say, you listen, you go to a grocery store and there's a health food section in the grocery store. What does that make the rest of the store? What's the rest of the store? Junk food, which it basically is, a lot of processed stuff. So, you have to be a little selective in finding your food sources. And people go, lately in the last, 4, 5, 6 years, people are, more so than they have in the past, raising chickens and eating the eggs from the chickens and doing everything on their own. And so I think that's a big deal when you understand what you have control over your knowledge too. So if you want to understand what's good for you and what's bad for you, then you can control learning. Now, I know that there's a lot of misleading things out there. And if was it FDA approved? And, I'm referring to like supplements and things like that, which, by the way, the FDA does not approve or disapprove supplements. They just don't deal with them. Right. So, but that's the thing is, like, when you think about, and I don't trust the FDA just because of money and power. I think, this is just my opinion, you could do your own research, as I have as well, that, when you think about the science behind a lot of this stuff, and especially with the big pharmas and all the medications and vaccines and all that stuff, they have scientists and publications and colleges even and huge organizations doing research on their products or whatever it is they're referring to, and they've been paid off. These doctors and scientists have, based on what they say, this product can do and so forth. So I don't really trust the FDA. I want to just have common sense. How about that? I want to stay away from big pharma anyways, right? I don't want to get into a position where I'm reliant, and that's what they want. They want me and everybody. They want you reliant on their products. They're going to create the problem, and then they're going to create solutions. So they're in a win-win situation only if we do not pay attention. If you're just coasting through life and not understanding, like you're just doing things that are, you're eating food that's out of your control. You're making yourself sick because of the foods. Then now you have to rely on big pharma to help you with your issues. But if you understand and have some common sense and just know that what's healthy, what's not, it's pretty easy to see. If there's a ingredients list on there, which there's clearly a lot of food products out there with ingredients on them, clearly, but the ones with the less or lesser amounts of ingredients I would go for. But anything that's packaged is probably processed. And the idea really is to, try to eat as much as you can of things that are not processed, clearly, because processed foods, cause all kinds of problems. But you are in control of that. You're in control of what you put in your body, and you're in control of the education that you give yourself, that you find. And of course, common sense. I mean, it's pretty natural to understand what's good for you and what's not. But in every other aspect of your life, your fitness and all that, I always talk about getting over the hump when you first get into fitness and you want to get in shape and you go to join the gym, and after a couple of weeks you don't see the results and you just haven't gone over, or it's really hard, which is very, very typical. But in anything in life, once you start continuing and you continue to do these things that may be hard at first, if you don't have the willpower and know that the thing that you're doing will make you a better person all around, everything, exercise, fitness, exercise, great nutrition, all that stuff is going to make you a better person in a lot of aspects. There's a lot of different things that you'll benefit from when you decide to do that and make that change. But again, you're in control of that change too. You're in control of your decisions. You're in control. I've talked a few episodes ago about putting a little Post-it note on your mirror, reminding you what goal it was or what you're trying to achieve. Your beginning of the year, so New Year's resolution. Maybe that's what you wrote on the Post-it note. Well, you're in control of that. You made the decision. Okay, so you put that little reminder on your mirror every day so that you know that who you let down when you decide to stop that process. You let yourself down, right? So we all are, we're selfish people, and in a sense, because again, we're in control of our own lives. The unselfish ones are, the ones that are, above and beyond. I think I found myself taking care of others before myself many times, which it doesn't bother me. That's just my nature. But I'm in control of that too. But you have to understand and acknowledge what is good and what is bad, and then obviously know that you are in control of your life. Every decision you make, we make thousands of big decisions, minor decisions. There's decisions made on a daily basis that can change your life. And all day long, you're making decisions. Now, I'm not talking about like important decisions. I'm talking about, what am I going to eat for lunch? Well, you have to decide what you're going to eat for lunch, and again, that has a lot to do with your health and so forth. What kind of show am I going to watch on TV? Am I going to watch, Price is Right this morning or not? Or I got this project I got to do. Am I going to put it off, or am I going to, try to hammer it out real quick and get it taken care of? And so when you look at the sports aspect and think about the things that you're in control of as a kicker, going back to my personal experience in the NFL, is that, when the wind and the weather, you cannot control those situations. You cannot turn the wind off or on. You can't, you can maybe manipulate it like they said the Giants used to do. And they used to open up that one, door, that big old garage door in the tunnel in one end zone. When the visiting team was kicking, that way, they'd open up the tunnel, the garage door of that tunnel, and in hopes that the wind would come howling through there and affect the kick. I didn't think it mattered to me. I didn't pay any attention to it whatsoever. But that happens, but that's out of my control. I can't control the person that's raising and lowering that door. I don't know that person. But again, so a lot of this has to do with your mindset, in thinking about the things that if you spend too much time focusing on the things that you can't control, you're wasting your energy. And it is, again, I go into everyday life stuff. We have the ability to really understand the decisions that we're making in everyday life. And so you have to, obviously choose the decisions that you think are going to benefit you. And yeah, there's times when you don't feel so good about things and you want to maybe eat that candy bar or whatever when you say it probably shouldn't. But yeah, you made the decision to eat the candy bar. If you common sense would tell you, if you eat too many candy bars, you're probably going to put on a lot of weight, and your health will decline from that. And if that was your main diet, then clearly you're not going to be a very healthy person. That's a decision. That's something in your control, what you put in your mouth. Again, I got off subject again, going to the kicking and all these little things that when you think about it, even with coaching, I don't use goalposts at all when I'm coaching my kickers. I don't have them try to kick a ball a certain direction, and we don't do drills based on where the ball goes. And we are not, in other words, result driven. We don't focus on the result. We focus on what gets you the result. And in kicking, in my opinion, this not ever for everybody, because there's a lot of athletic kids out there that don't care too much about form, and they just athletically steer a ball through the uprights. But again, that can only last so long. But with regards to just understanding that the process of kicking a football, if it's repeated the same every single time, in other words, a little mechanical, if you're kind of a mechanical kicker and you're able to repeat the same process every time that gives you those good results, then why would you try to outdo your own process? Why would you have to do a better process because it's a game-winning kick? Who cares? It actually will probably hurt you more than help you, because again, it's something different that you don't normally do. And so, again, we have these decisions we have to make on everyday life, and when you think about just natural things that could benefit us or hurt us, if you're in control of those decisions that you're going to make, whether it affects us positively or negatively. And so, you really have to put yourself in that mindset where, and again, we talk about embracing the suck. Just giving into into this period of time that's not going to be fun. The first week or two of your workouts are not going to be a lot of fun, but because it's going to be hard, and you're going to be, man, do I want to do this every day? And it's going to be, you're going to test yourself. It's going to, your true colors will come out when you have decisions to make that's going to affect your life. And God willing, you don't get into a situation where it's life threatening. And now think about that for a second. That goes back to that whole, game winning kick thing. Well, it's so important I make this kick. Well, what if you just came down with cancer or something that was caused by your poor lifestyle choices? I'm sure there's a lot of reasons why cancer pops up. I think a lot of it has to do with your health and your environments, and pollutants, and your diet, clearly your sleep. There's a lot of things that affect disease, and I think that accumulation of making poor decisions about things that you're in fully control of. That's my point. You have full control over making these decisions, and throughout time, you made the wrong decision, but it felt right to you because it tastes good. Oh, this food tastes great. Well, 10 years of that food gave you cancer, or, working in an environment or something that you're around a lot of heavy pollutants, or whatever the case may be that's causing the issue in the long term, you had control over. And so it comes down to being your fault. And it's something that you're going to have to live with and make a decision to either live or not, or try to do the best you can. And then you got to trust the doctors and their, protocol when it comes to, cancer treatments and things like that, which I'm not a real big fan of. I've been hearing a lot the last 5-6 years about how the treatment of cancer is actually the reason these cancer patients die. Their organs fail. And that's the reason these cancer patients die. It wasn't the cancer that killed them. It was the treatment that killed them ultimately. And so, I don't want to get too crazy with that, because there's all kinds of, I'm not a doctor. I'm not giving you medical advice. I'm just saying, just be careful about the decisions you make in the long term, because, over and over again, if you're making those same poor decisions, it's going to affect you in the long run. And so when we think about decision making and what we can and can't control, you don't want to spend your energy on things you can't control. I'm never going to care about the wind. Yes, there's wind, but again, it could be windy right there in the middle of the field, but not at the end zone or where the goalposts are. It could be high, the wind's higher, or, you don't even see it. You have no idea how strong it is up, 50 feet above the ground, which is where your ball is going to go. Maybe, you're going to kick the ball 50 feet up in the air. Well, it might be pretty strong up there. You never know. But again, I can't control it. So what am I going to do about it? You can't do anything about a lot of things in life that you have no control over. The one big thing, and again, I'm going down a rabbit hole here, this whole chemtrail stuff. It's just so irritating and it's weird here in Jacksonville. I don't know about anybody else if they're here in Jacksonville, but the last 4 days have been incredibly clear. And then I'm thinking, wow, is this like, there was no streaks, there was no clouds, there was nothing in the air. It was very, very beautiful. 4 days in a row, we've had blue skies. It's been really, really nice. And then today, there's a couple lines. I'm like, man. And I'm telling you, when I wake up and I'm driving to the gym or something, I'm looking around. I'm like, what in the heck is this crap? This is not normal. Okay. And so that stuff is out of my control. I can't do anything about it except for bitch and complain. I'll say, sorry for swearing, but it's all I can do. I can't do anything about it. I can't, you can raise your voice and maybe be heard somewhere. But again, that's not going to, make rules and decision makers. Oh yeah, well, Mike says he doesn't like seeing these streaks. Well, let's stop doing that. I can't control that. It's them. So, but again, I can control, my doing detox, protocols and trying to get rid of whatever it is that's coming out of the sky, the aluminum and barium and all these chemicals, these heavy metals that are coming down from the sky. They've been proving it, like bees are dying everywhere now. It's like, it's the things that are tested in the water and the snow. Even there recently, that big whole front that came through the United States, people are actually doing tests, like chemical tests on the actual snow itself, and finding some really strange stuff inside that I guess melted water at that point. But it's crazy. So those are the things that we can't really control. But you want to enjoy your best life experience, make good decisions, and know what it is that you have control over. And so that's where, when you think about the Super Bowl, that's what I was saying. It was such a refreshing mindset that I heard the guy that was interviewed yesterday morning or afternoon before the game. And he's like, I'm just going to do the same things, just going to stretch, get warmed up, and do what we normally do. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. And so I think sometimes you get too carried away. And going back to kicking and the sports thing, there's so many kids that come to me and say, because they work with their coaches and they're telling, I need to do this and this and this. And there's all these things that these kids are saying that these coaches are telling them to do. And I'm like, I'm in the business really to simplify the process, because if you think about it, that's the easiest way to repeat. To repeat something most consistently is a simple process. If it's a hard process, you got a lot of variables in it, it's very difficult to repeat all that. So I can control my motions and movements if I don't care too much about the result. And that's where, again, we get into the mindset. You can't care about the result because the motion, the process, the form, the technique, all that stuff is the result. It just happens before you actually kick the ball. It's in the process of kicking the ball. So, you have control over that. And so if you had control over trying to learn all these things about kicking, that ultimately is going to be hindering your success in the long run, because you have to master more motions and movements than someone like me. And the things that I'm teaching is just simple everyday life kind of stuff, not necessarily comfortable with the kicking, because I don't want to do a lot of lateral stuff. It's more forward stuff, and kickers don't like to swing forward. They want to swing lateral because that's where the target is. I'm telling them, don't care where the target is. Do what I'm saying. You'll surprise yourself. So, going into that mindset again of on game day, and, and in your life and your workout routine, your daily, your weekly diet regimen, you are in control of all of that. Yes. So you get advice from a health coach, you get advice from a fitness expert. You get advice. And that's another thing that is a little tricky. You got to understand and know and believe and trust in people who have the knowledge. That's why I get a little concerned when people are, even just in our regular school systems, the education, where did it come from? I think the Rockefellers were in charge of the medical industry, and the books that were made to teach from our medical students. And so when you have a across the board regiment of what you want people to learn about medication, and if you're unethical like the Rockefellers are, and the elites and the people that are this, I don't know, you call them deep state, you want to call them just the evil elites, whatever you want to call them, they're out there. After the Epstein files have been released, I'm sure you kind of all figured out that, we're not, there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes that we were not aware of. And a lot of it's sick stuff, clearly. Like we live in a very demonic world. I think, honestly, on a lighter note, a huge, amazing lighter note, I think that a lot of people, because of those files and what they've seen and read and all that, and they trust that it's legit, okay. And I think that opened their eyes to knowing how much evil is out there in the world. And to take that a little step further, that the devil is real when you see these things that these people are doing, because you like, how in the world can someone do that? And I'm not even going to some of the stuff. It's disgusting what these people are doing. Okay. If there is a devil out there controlling people and making them do these evil things, there's got to be a God, clearly. So you people who don't understand, or some maybe not know, or even know Jesus, or even understand there is a God, I hope you do now. I don't know if I have any other explanation. Okay. We can't control a lot of the things that they're doing. They clearly can, control what they're doing. They're making really poor decisions, and their eternal life is not going to be very fun, in my opinion. Now, I think they think differently than we do. They think that their eternal life is going to be just a party, an orgy, you name it. This is every evil thing they do on earth. That's our eternity. That's going to be amazing. Can't wait. Wow. You're not going to be very happy when they discover that it's not what the devil said it was, because the devil's very deceiving. Okay. So we can control who we want to listen to or who we trust. You want to trust the devil and in what he says that he can bring you. I don't know. Hopefully you're not talking to the devil and praying to Satan and all that stuff, clearly. But, you have on the other end of the spectrum, clearly, you have the choice to learn about Jesus and have an understanding about how to live a very graceful life and a grateful life and a life, in the life and the steps of Jesus, and knowing that, this lifestyle is what you were put on this earth to do. And yes, we have free will. That's a problem for some people, because you give some people with the wrong intentions free will, and they'll you give somebody an inch, they take a mile. That concept. That's kind of the same thing. So understanding what you can control and understanding the consequences of the things and the actions and the things that you're doing, the decisions that you're making, that really is where I'm going with that. So you have control over a lot of stuff. You have control over decisions and things that you have on a daily basis. And so you want to make the right decisions. And I'm intermixing this whole aspect of understanding the things that we can and can't control and what you want to focus on with decisions, because they go hand in hand. You have the decision in the control to eat that candy bar or not. Okay, well, it's your choice. What do you want to do? God gave us that. That's great for a lot of people, I would assume, because then, if you have the knowledge and you have the understanding and in the experience, and when I refer to the experience, I'm referring to me personally, because a couple times in my life, maybe 2 or 3, I got heavy and I got out of shape and I just hated it. I'm like, gosh, here I am again. Wake up, Mike. Stop making those poor decisions. Think about what you can control and go for them. The good stuff, not the bad stuff, clearly. So you may run into periods of times in your life, just like me, that you, over a time or two, I can't tell you, I don't remember the last time I was heavy. I've made that decision to really, stay on top of it. And you get complacent sometimes. I get that. You get in routines sometimes. Your job might keep you from eating healthy. You don't have time, which is another thing that I can't stand either. The lifestyle, the system that they've brought us up to learn and to do is not it's not a great opportunity, because we work most of our lives. We work we slave, for the dollar. Okay. In the middle of our lives, which is the most of our lives, between the age of 18 or so, 20 or so, all the way up to age 65 or so, we're working. And then, of course, when you're a kid, that's fun. Okay. You don't have responsibilities. Everybody takes care of what you need, and there's no decision making. You still have control over what you do and what you think back when you're a kid and growing up. And again, that's probably the prime time to learn good stuff, clearly, because you're learning. You're a young child, and in the process of you getting older, you're learning all these great stuff. Well, you could be taught bad stuff too. Well, and then you fast forward through your job and work, and then you retire. Well, now, depending on how your health is, what kind of decisions did you make on the things that you could control during your life of working up until the age of 65? Now you got retirement. So if you're in bad health, guess what? Your retirement's not going to be that much fun. You work all your life to enjoy your retirement and maybe travel. Well, if you're not healthy enough to travel, then what good was that? And if you look, I'm a reverse engineer by trade. I just always, with kicking, I go really deep into reverse engineering, cause and effect. I want to know what's affecting this problem that happens up here. Does it start back here? Well, yeah, going in through your life and what you're eating, what the things that you can control, the foods that you putting in your mouth, the exercises that you did or did not do, you had full control over those. Did you do them back then? Did you do them through your life, your majority of your life? Now you're retired. Okay, if you did and you felt good about yourself and you're in shape, then your retirement's going to be good. You should have good longevity, good health in your retirement. Live to over 100 if you can. Yeah, that's my goal. So I think that there's a lot of things that you're going to regret looking back, and that's something we cannot do. We can't go back in time and make different decisions. I wish we could, but we can't. And so you have to really make sure that you understand that before you're making these decisions, because that's the other thing is you can't see in the future. So you don't really realize, you should though, you should realize that eating 4 Snickers a day, I'm exaggerating clearly, is not going to be beneficial for you in the long term. You're probably going to have a lot of health issues when you get older if you have that kind of diet and you don't exercise and you don't take care of yourself. Again, you are in full control of taking care of yourself. Okay? That's what God made us to do is enjoy our life, love each other, love your neighbor as you would yourself, and help others and enjoy life and be healthy and be abundant and walk with Christ and live the life of Christ and do the right things, make the right decisions. That's what we're here for. And then there's the bad apples that do the total opposite. I'm referring to the evil people that somehow come into power, and there's another rabbit holes with the bloodlines of all these presidents, and there's all kinds of things that you can look up and find, but they're saying that the bloodlines of presidents have always been royal kind of people that have these, very, very wealthy and intricate, life backgrounds and upbringings and things like that. And so they come from very powerful families. So yes, we are at the hands of some decision makers, but you can break out of that and it might be a little bit more difficult. Instead of going down to your local Publix or your local grocery store and buying what they provide for you, you might have to go to a different store, go to a farm, or go to a flea market when they're doing have all kinds of vegetables and fruits and things like that people sell that they grow their own. They're not throwing a bunch of pesticides and junk on them. So with that said, I hope you guys have an amazing Monday evening. I know I just kind of abruptly stopped, but I do have to get going. I got some coaching to do, but I do enjoy talking and sharing my experience. Again, I'm not a professional by any means. I am learning about being a health coach and learning my midlife, in my 50s now. So I took a while before I started to really take this serious. But in my lifetime, I've hopefully made good decisions. I feel good about my current state, 53 years, almost said 54, I'll be 54 in May. But I feel good about my decisions, and I feel confident that I'm going to stay with the flow and continue on with making those good decisions. And my goal and my prayer, my hope, my dreams are for you all to do as well. Make the right decisions. Enjoy your life. Don't make poor decisions. This is great, I'm making these decisions, and you're having fun, you're partying, you're drinking out. Yeah, it's fun. I get it. I had some beverages yesterday at my party. It was fun. Okay, I got to regroup and get back in reality and make sure that I'm doing the right thing and making the right decision. So with that said, I hope you guys have an amazing Monday night, and we'll see you next Monday night at 5:30 on Zealous Wellness with Mike Hollis. Take care.
Thank you for watching Zealous Wellness with Mike Hollis. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. See you next time.